So, hello and welcome, friends of the paranormal. This is your co-host, Stu, and I'm here with the paranormalist, Patty Wilson. Patty, how are you this glorious October day?
Well, doing amazingly well. I'm happy. We finished our first night at Fort Bedford doing the ghost stories and haunted history walking tour.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody within the reach of this podcast who would be interested, we're going to be doing it again next next Saturday night. And there is a possibility of just coming and sitting and hearing stories around the 31st or November the 1st. You just have to wait a couple days until that's all sorted out. We'll announce that as well. So we've had a lot of fun this last 24 hours.
Good. So you said next Saturday. So we're recording this on the 5th of October. We normally try to publish on the Friday, so that what you're talking Saturday, October 11th.
Yes.
Okay.
So this should come
so
out like
that,
the day before.
and this is 2025
Mhm.
because we do have a catalog of episodes going back a few years, so we should probably state that as well. Because 2
Yes.
years in the future, we don't have somebody to say, "Hey, let's go to this," and oh, we missed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm ready to. I have an idea to do something different, a little bit different tonight, and
All right.
I'm
Well,
all excited about it.
let's. I'll do my spiel, and then we'll be done with that, and then you can dive right into it. So we do thank everyone for joining us. Again, our YouTube membership is going up and up. I mean, it's creeping up, but that is it's rewarding to see that. It really is. So we also have the 2 Facebook groups, and as I mentioned before, we are giving away a copy of Patty's very first published book from 1998. Haunted Pennsylvania. This is the original, as you call it, the green one.
Yep, my green one.
And for this, you must be a member of our Facebook groups to get the link to the video describing it. But then information from that video tells you how to enter to win that book. And hopefully we can. I was looking at potentially drawing on around this Sunday, the 19th of October, but it really depends on how many entries we get. We do want to give people a fair chance to be able to get in and to get that book. It really is a wonderful book, and I go into that in the short little. It's a 3.5 minute video, so if you can put up with me, my voice sounds much better than it does today, and I look a lot better than I do today as well. But with that being said, then what is our topic for today?
We are going to go through an Samhain ceremony and the entire event, pre-Christianity.
Okay.
So
All right.
I've been doing a lot of reading about it, and I wanted to kind of paint what it must have been like and all the origins for what we see as Halloween today. And then I'm going to identify how almost everything we have today comes from that time frame. So here we go. So just sit back, everybody, and hopefully relax and listen to what I'm about to describe for you. So Samhain was one of the 4 fires of the year for the Celtic people. And each of them represented the midpoint of a season. So October 31st would be midway between, fall and winter. And so this is how they chose these particular days. And each of them has also so much different types of significance. But of them all, Samhain is the most planned for and the most celebrated and the most intricately designed day of celebration. So it serves multitudes of purposes, and it took a long time to get ready for this. So even though it's only a 24-hour period, all of this stuff had to happen ahead of time. And then I'm going to take you straight into the event. So beforehand, you would have to have had your costumes made, and I'll explain why we had costumes made. You had to have food prepared. You had to have your home cleaned. And then at sunset on the day of Samhain, it would begin. The farmers that morning would have taken all of the livestock that they could not guarantee would make it through till spring because of not having the supplies, and the animals would starve. and there was a butchering that happened early that day. And all of these animals are now cooked. There's a huge bier of wood waiting. And when I say huge, I'm talking several stories high, if possible. And every village did this, and every single person was forced to participate. If you did not participate, you would be punished. So this was like the seminal event of the entire year. Now, on the dark side of this, there would be either criminals, people who were strangers, and if there were not a sufficient number of them, then from the village would be drawn people who would be killed as the sacrifice at some point in the evening hours. And this would be part of the ceremony. It is a dark ceremony, and
Sounds like it. Yeah.
it is extremely dark. And there are records that indicate, and archaeological evidence to indicate, that there was also cannibalism. So you prepare all of this, you get ready. At dusk, you blow out your candles, you stop the fire in your hearth and make sure it's completely out, because you are turning off the sun. Fire and sun are interwoven in this culture. So you want to turn off the sun. We're going from the light period of summer, whenever it's bright and warm, to the cold and dark period of winter. And so everything is turned off. You blow out everything. It'll be completely dark except for the fire. And when we hear the word bonfire, it's not a bonfire, it's a bone fire.
Oh.
That is exactly where the origin of that word comes from the cooking of the bones of both animals and people in that huge conflagration. And they will gather. There will be tables of food laid out, whatever grains or breads or whatever that they had. And then, of course, the primary thing would be the meat. And it is a huge celebration. Now imagine, you're going there, you have a carved, most likely turnip, it could be a beet or a potato, that you have intricately worked on either that day or the day before. It has either a funny face or a horrifying face, and there is a rope or some sort of cordage run through it and an opening at the top. And you carry this with you as you walk to the bone fire and take your place. This will matter later. Now, the Druid priests, they would have wooden branches woven into their hair, and they would stand up like horns on a deer, and they would begin the process of the sacrifices, the blood sacrifices. And I don't want to get super graphic, but let me say that they literally made a fountain of blood. And this would continue to happen. The earth would be so saturated with it. People would be saturated with it on purpose, because this is a cleansing ritual. And everything's all done. They start talking to eating the food, and the darkness falls, and the fires are, so high, and they keep dragging in logs to keep the fire going. And throughout this, they're looking for certain things. They're looking to find out what the future might be, what's going to happen. And sitting around are cauldrons filled with water or oil, and in some instances even blood. And there are basins filled with water, and they have apples bobbing in them. So the idea of bobbing for apples is a very old one, and it comes from the Samhain ceremony. And it would be young ladies who would bob for apples, and the first one to get an apple in her teeth would be the one who would be married first. There would be apples on sticks and they would be pushed into the fire by young women and young men. And if the apple burst apart, that meant that something catastrophic would happen. If it roasted well and you could eat it, that meant you were going to have a good and even season and perhaps even get married. Peeled apples. When I was a little girl, my mother used to make us take pride in the fact we could peel the entire apple and not um, break the apple peel. And I always wondered where that came from because I was like my mom and her mother and my aunts and everybody were like all crazy about it. And yeah, I can do it because I practiced a lot. And they would take them apples and they would take the apple peel and throw it over their left shoulder. And it would be like a giggly thing and they would just talk but I never knew why. I finally found out why. Because you would peel this apple and you would take this long peel and you would cast it over your left shoulder and it would supposedly give you the initials of the man you were going to marry. And it was a great deal of fun. It's like there's a lot that went into this ceremony. But as darkness continues to creep in, and all you can see off in the distance, if you could see anything at all, would be the stars and maybe the bonfires of the next village over, or something along those lines. And that's it. Complete darkness everywhere else. There's not a light flickering in any window. You have scraped out your hearth to make sure there's nothing still burning before you came. So just darkness and the laughter and the music and the wildness of all of this and the chaos of all of this. And there's these cauldrons sitting there and the wise women would come and the men and they would gaze into them, the scrying, and they would foretell the future because on this night, the bonds between the earth and the other worlds thinned and demonic entities would be able to come over and other spirits could come into our world and they could run amok and do all kinds of things. And one of the things that happened on that night is that they would help the people to be able to scry and see what's coming for the next year. It's all about looking into the next year. Would the crops be good? Would so and so live? There would be an entity, a female entity who was a demigod, and her name was Morgana. And she might come in any guise. It could be an old woman. It could be a beautiful young woman with red hair. It could be an animal. Whatever she chose, because she was a shapeshifter. And she would present herself, shift shape, and be in the grouping for the king of Ireland. And she would lift up a goblet filled with blood, and she would hand it to a man, and he would be the king. This was her way of saying, I'm forecasting that this man shall come to be your king this year. And they were waiting for all of this. There are so many things all going on at once. They know the spirits are out there. They know that there's demons out there. And there's all these fairies. There's the Ishi. The Ishi are the people of the mounds or the fairy mounds and the fairy rings. They're waiting and watching as they're in the darkness to see what's coming close to them. Is it a puka? And we think of a puka as a dog, and in England it was a black dog that was of magical nature. But in Ireland, it would have been a large black horse with red eyes, and he would be out into the night somewhere. And someone might come across him, not usually at the gathering, but on your way home from the gathering, he could ride up upon you. And there were so many spirits that they knew were out that night. I want to tell you a little bit about some of those because they're very interesting. There is the SLA, which is the host of the unforgiven dead. And the SLA appear as black birds, an entire flock of these huge black birds that come out of nowhere. They come from the west, whirling like a whirlwind as they fly around. And these things are coming in search of the spirits of the people who are dying and of the recent dead. They can even steal the spirits of people who are not dying. They literally would grab hold of a human being and lift them into the air and steal them away. And the only way to stop this is if you had iron. Iron would stop the fairies. Iron would stop the slee. It was the only thing you could do is maybe cast an iron knife in their direction or shoot an iron tipped arrow. And so all of this is going on. Meanwhile, the women of the village would have set out plates and places for the recent dead and for the revered dead that might have been dead for maybe a grandmother or grandfather or somebody in the village who had been particularly renowned. And they're waiting for these spirits to come and take their place at the feast, at the festival. And this thing encompasses dancing and wild music and just this whole raft of entities. They're looking for, all of this and so much more. And as the night gets later and later, they're looking for what will happen on the way home, because the way to and the way home are the times whenever they might be accosted. There are werewolves, according to Irish myth. Female werewolves would emerge from the cave at Cadanan, and they would come out of there where they lived, and they would hunt the livestock that was left on this night. And only on this night were they able to come out and do this in mass. There were banshees that were loose for those who recognize them. There were the Binai, which is a washerwoman, and you might come across her sitting at the crossing spot on a creek. And if she was washing clothing and you recognized it as yours, this was her telling you that in the coming year you will die. There were this headless coach and the Dunai. So imagine a coach made of human bones with a driver without a head and 6 black horses without heads. And they were driving in your direction. And you, if you are going to be lifted up and taken by the Danane, you have to, you'll be the only one to see it. Everybody else won't know exactly what's going on, and you could be screaming. There are headless horsemen out and about. They are demonic entities that carry their heads in their hand, and their heads are internally lit and they glow, and that's what they use as their lantern as they ride by. And if they touch you, if they ride past you and tap you with their leg or their hand, you shall die. There's the Lady Gwyn, a headless woman in white, accompanied by a black pig who will chase people. She's a Welsh figure, but she makes an appearance in several of the different nationalities of people under different names. There's the Fomorians. These are monstrous, destructive giants that represent the powers of nature. They will demand child sacrifice. They demand milk and they demand grain. Now, every person on the evening of Samhain will have already laid out a little bowl of milk and of something called a soul cake to feed the souls who are going to be coming in hungry and wandering from the other world to this one. At the site of the bonfire, you will see big platters of these soul cakes made for the feeding of the dead. There are so many other entities that are coming. There's the Anai, which is a underworld dweller that emerges from the Hall of Terra and takes a sword and just cuts a swath in front of him. If he's going down a road and he sees the people, he will literally just cut them in half. There is the Grim Reaper character, and that's where the Sai comes from. He is going to kill the farmers and take them away. There's black dogs, there's black cats. Interestingly enough, in the Samhain ceremonies, you'll hear lots of stories of black dogs or of dogs that later on they realized were actually demonic entities, evil spirits that had come to carry them away. And the witches, of course, the witches were there. Some of them appeared as human beings, old women, beautiful girls who had talents and tasks that they could show you. They carried baskets of herbs with them. And if you saw them, they could heal you or they could kill you. All of this was moving through the night. And now you have to go back through all of this. When the fires burn down low and everyone has feasted and all of the festivities are gone and they're tired now, each of them are given a huge ember from the burned down bonfire. And they place it in their turnip or their potato, whatever device they had brought. And they take it back and they will light their fire with that and nurse it throughout the rest of the night. And that will be the fire for the new year. It was very important that you try not to let that fire die at any point because that was a bad omen. So you took it home, you lit your candles, you placed your fire, and you tried to keep it alive all night so that you could lay down and rest a little bit. And whoever was in charge of it, were they to fall asleep? Well, there are spirits. There are lots of spirits out, and they could come for you. There are stories of these puka horses and people going home, they're exhausted and they see this horse just kind of walking along the lane that they're in, and they don't think of it at first, or the horse will seem to be tired and exhausted, and they're like, that must be somebody's horse. I'll take it and ride it home. And once you get on the back of the puka, it takes you on the most terrifying ride of your life, and it won't let you off until it throws you. And you can imagine the amount of damage that could be done by that. The costumes that you wear, you're praying that they're good, that they're going to make you look like one of the entities that have come from the other side. You might have literally a pig's head on your head. Masks on you that you've cut from roughly woven cloth. Cloaks on you. You want to look like anything other than what you are. You want to be able to blend in with the dead that are walking on this night. And so the masks give you anonymity, and hopefully will allow you to go unmolested all the way home. There are those who will tell you that it might also be that the masks gave you a chance to be other than yourself. In those costumes, the beggar could demand food of the rich man. And those soul cakes throughout the years, as the Christianity creeps into the Emerald Isle, excuse me, the practice of the sacrifices and a lot of this stuff dies, but the soul cakes are still one of the things that was carried on. And the soul cakes would be baked and sat on a platter, and on Samhain night, people would come with masks and costumes, and they would knock on the door, and they would recite a verse or read a poem or do prayers for your loved ones who had just died, and then you would pay them in soul cakes and they would move on. It is the most action-filled 24 hours I could possibly imagine. Horrific, magical, mystical, wrapped in all of this. And it was done every single year. And as the years moved on and things got, if you want to call it more civilized, the bone fire became a bond fire because we didn't want to remember why it had originally been struck. The witch's hat became a thing, and it actually has a divine meaning within the confines of Druidic worship. The cauldron continues to be a part of the Halloween scene. So all the things you see for Halloween, the dead that shamble along, the witches that fly through the sky, the cauldrons that they bubble stuff in, the bats that were drawn to the light of that huge bonfire at that night of Samhain, and every other things. Vampires were believed to come out that night. All sorts of different creatures. They all come from one source. The Druidic worship at Samhain. And so I took you through that process. And of course, in the United States, we use pumpkins to carve, to do the faces, but it's still the same process brought here by Irish immigrants and used. One of the things that used to happen around the turn of the 20th century was that all the little towns and villages would have a communal bonfire. People would gather around. They would, there would be in dirty old clothes. Women would wear their husbands or brothers' old clothes. They would blacken their faces. And even that comes from Samhain, because once all of this is cooled and they can get their hands into it, they would take the charred wood and ash and they would rub it on their livestock. They would wipe their faces with it because they believed that there were magical properties that would protect them through the coming cold months if they could do that. And they would take some of this home with them. And we see variations on this theme today. The soul cakes have become the trick or treat, the performing an act in order to get the soul cakes has become, scaring people or, saying something funny or whatever. The costumes, of course, still exist. And a lot of the other things we talk about all the time. I mean, this podcast has talked about almost everything I've said about tonight, and it's all still there. And there are those who say that even though we think we have progressed, we still are clinging to those old myths, and we still religiously perform some of these same actions. And perhaps, just perhaps, when Samhain night appears and we go out with our kids trick-or-treating, or we sit and watch the kids go by, we're not seeing just kids go by. Perhaps these dark things from the past are real. And if they are, and if the veil thins on that night, well, just be careful what you do and where you go and who you invite into your home. Because there's nothing in any of the traditions, there's nothing in any of the traditions of any of the other cultures I've ever encountered that says those giants, those demons, those undead ever disappear. And with that, I want to wish everybody a good night.